what official checks are there on the QWE? So, you made it sound forward, and you said specifically what they're aiming to do is take away lots of the pressure and simplify things. But potentially, what checks does an employer need to be prepared for from the SRA?
As far as I know, the SRA really hasn't done a lot of spot checking. So I don't know whether they will in the future. And where I am acting as an external confirming solicitor, I'm very careful to make sure I'm very methodical and I keep evidence of that. But it is nowhere near what you had to do under the old LPC training contract. So if I was back as a partner in a law firm, I would still want to see evidence that the person was thinking about the skills they want to pick up. I'll share this here to show you what I use when I'm doing the QWE confirmations. I've taken the SRA form and I've modified it slightly. You can see, get the QWE in up to 4 placements, no more than that. This table, I've added some letters and numbers, but it's the same stuff here. These are the competencies. And you can see that you can use this as a personal development plan. And that might be a good idea. But we're, again, drifting into employment law good practice, where maybe you have a quarterly or a monthly meeting with your aspiring solicitor to see whether they're getting the experience that they, would or could get. But it's getting into this area of good practice as an employer, getting the most from your employee. The SRA is not going to dictate, and they're not going to say, can we see your training record? Because they really have stripped away all of the paraphernalia that you had before. It is very much a question of doing the best that you feel ethically you should be doing for your employee during this process so that they can acquire the competencies. Yeah, I would say don't over-engineer it. Unless you feel there's a good reason to, but the SRA not forcing you to.
Okay. That's really helpful. It looks like a useful form for clarity as well. Because sometimes there's just as much chaos and confusion caused by an open door of we'll do whatever you would like to, as there is by being very prescriptive, isn't there, So to have some sort of review in place is a good idea. And I know some of our colleagues I hear from training providers who, offer apprenticeships. And so apprentices, as you said earlier, are probably getting some of that structure from us and getting some of that sort of the documentation, the review opportunities, the reflections, it's encouraged, in their coaching, in their teaching, etc. But perhaps outside the apprenticeships, it is a bit more of a free-for-all, which could leave some employers and some trainee solicitors feeling a little bit lost. So I think a framework of structure is a good idea, isn't it?
I would thoroughly agree with that. But it's just good business practice to have these quarterly, or we used to do monthly meetings. I used to say to my staff, well, look, this is a space for you to discuss things without any pressure. And then we could move it later on, perhaps to KPIs and things like this. But it meant that when the annual appraisal came, there was no surprise. If there was a surprise, there was a failing on both our parts in not sharing. So a light touch on the tiller rather than a yanking the ship round in another direction.